Hello, my name is Ryan Squires. I'm the GIS manager for the Wisconsin Legislative Technology Services Bureau. We're a nonpartisan bureau of the Wisconsin Legislature. I'm here to talk to you today about WISE-LR, which is the Wisconsin Shape Editor for Local Redistricting. It's a web-based software that counties and local municipalities will be using in 2021 to draw wards, supervisory districts, and aldermanic districts. Thank you very much for WLAA for hosting this spring webinar. I appreciate the opportunity to address this audience, and I want to thank my moderator, Colleen Hermans, for taking her time to moderate this session. Thank you very much. Counties have been using WISE-Decade, the platform which WISE-LR, the local redistricting software, sits on. For the last 6 or 7 years, they've been submitting municipal boundaries, wards, parcels, a bunch of good data sets to the state via this web platform. Most LAOs are familiar with this, but some people at the county maybe as well. But right now you have a current login to the WISE-Decade system, which is your username being your county, Dane, Iowa, Eau Claire, and a normal WISE-Decade password that is given to the county. There's also a secondary password we've added for the WISE-LR system. Since WISE-LR is a subsection of the WISE-Decade platform, and many people will be accessing the local redistricting software that aren't normally accessing WISE-Decade, such as municipal users, county staff that have usually not any interaction with the GIS world. So we want to make sure we isolate certain groups of people from certain sections of the system. So we want to make sure just the GIS folks, the county folks are the ones accessing and submitting data to us for parcel projects and WLAP programs and whatnot. And then everybody else has access to the parts they need for WISE-LR. So therefore, there's a WISE-LR only password that you can feel free to distribute to your municipal users and other county users you have within your county government. This WISE-LR only password is a simple password that will only let you access the WISE-LR system. So as I mentioned, WISE-LR sits inside of WISE-Decade. If you are a normal WISE-Decade user, when you log into WISE-Decade, you'll see these 4 panels here on the left that may look familiar to you. To access WISE-LR, just click the upper right-hand panel, and you'll enter the WISE-LR administrator, which is on the right side. If you enter just the WISE-LR only password, that's the first page you're going to see is that WISE-LR administrator. So the WISE-LR administrator is designed to guide entire counties through the local redistricting process. This is kind of your home base operation for seeing how municipalities are progressing through their plan making, how other parts of your county are working together, seeing other people's plans and sharing. This is all kind of your main dashboard for local redistricting. There are 3 phases to local redistricting. The first phase is 60 days for the supervisory district drawing. The second stage is drawing the municipal wards, again, 60 days to draw the wards at the municipal level. And then a third stage of 60 days where the municipalities and counties can reconcile any differences between the ward plans and supervisory plans. The key being that every ward can only exist in a singular supervisory district. So every ward has to nest. And if those plans are in violation of each other, you won't be able to submit your final ward plan. You also see 2 additional panes there on the left, a stage 0 confirm block lines, called stage 0 because it's before stage 1, and stage A for aldermanic districts. Stage 0 is specifically for county land information officers to confirm the final US Census block geometry. So redistricting isn't drawing lines on a map with a crayon and circling areas and saying this is a district. Redistricting is taking US Census blocks that are officially enumerated by the US Census and grouping them together to create districts. So why that's important is those underlying blocks, those Lego pieces we're using to make this district, have to be finalized by the US Census as an officially enumerated piece of geography before we can begin. There's a program that LIOs have been participating in for the last 6 years with help of LTSB, which is the Consolidated Boundary and Annexation Survey with the US Census. So they have been submitting wards and municipal boundaries to us as required by state statute every 6 months. And then we have been relaying the changes to the municipal boundaries and the differences between those and the US Census data to the US Census. So every 6 months, we've been collecting this data, and we've been updating the census every single year to try to get this underlying blocks as accurate as possible to the real world. So every municipal boundary we have is perfectly in those blocks, cut correctly, and it's officially enumerated. Wisconsin state constitution requires us to use U.S. Census geography to create districts because it's the only officially enumerated piece of geography available. The last time that the land information officers were able to submit data to us was January 1st, 2020. So we updated the U.S. Census, and they're updating their data, and then by the time they release their data, the final counts, minus the virus aspects, if we're going to focus just on the normal schedule, approximately April 1st, 2021, redistricting would begin. And that means that any annexations that occurred between January 1st of 2020 and April 1st of 2021 wouldn't be in the U.S. Census data because they hadn't had an update from us since then, and they're not allowed to update since then. So this is a step where land information officers will go in and divide U.S. Census blocks and adjust for any annexations that have occurred. So reassigning blocks to municipalities that they actually belong to. It's a very careful process they have to go to because the alteration of these blocks is also the same geography that's being altered. They'll be used for legislative districts and U.S. congressional districts. They begin the process, the LIOs do, by confirming this geography, so that way everyone after this, the county drawing supervisory districts, the municipalities drawing wards, everyone drawing aldermanic districts, they're all playing and starting on the same set of Legos. They're all starting on the same playing field. You'll notice that there are start dates and due dates there on the left panels. Those start dates and due dates refer to the 60-day periods that are referred to that take place for stage 1, 2, and 3. So it's up to 60 days. So hypothetically, again, if we start redistricting on April 1st, 2020, and supervisory districts only take 10 days to draw and pass, and we did a good job and we've passed it all the way through, that means that stage 2 for drawing municipal wards wouldn't begin 60 days after April 1st. It begins 10 days after April 1st. The moment that stage 1 is done, the stage 2 begins, and 60 days begins from that moment. So theoretically, all redistricting can be done as fast as you want it to be, but up to 3 60-day increments. You'll see there under stage 0, there's an ASAP under due date. So as I mentioned, part of confirming that blocks is dividing those blocks and reallocating population. The release of the Public Law 94-171 data from the U.S. Census is technically what triggers the start of redistricting, therefore the start of stage 1. However, the LIOs can't divide those blocks until the data is released. So by happenstance, the stage 0 and stage 1 actually begin on the same exact moment. As soon as the data is released, stage 0 begins because that's when the LIOs have to go in and fix the data before stage 1 can begin. However, by law, stage 1's clocks is starting that same day. So what that means is that the LIOs take 15 days to do stage 0. They've just eaten 15 days out of the county's 60-day period of stage 1. So the LIOs should be ready to go as soon as redistricting begins to get in there and do it as fast as they can and correctly as they can. So that way they don't eat any time into the stage 1 period. So here's stage 0, as I discussed, and then at the bottom of here, the LIOs will enter their confirmation code. I'll discuss confirmation codes in a little more detail later on, but basically it's an identification code for the LIOs to say, this is good U.S. Census geography, we're good to go, let's move forward. The caveat here with the confirmation of blocks is that if there are annexations that occur after the start of redistricting and before the finalization of wards, or if there's a situation where a block, such as a prison, needs to be cut up to properly make a supervisory district, you may contact LTSB and we will work to get those splits back in there manually. It'll be a longer, not automated process, but it is definitely within your right to split the blocks again later on. Okay, let's go ahead and sign on into the stage 0 section quick to demonstrate how that actually works. So I'm going to use Fond du Lac. So here we are, and we're in stage 0. I've already clicked Initiate Split here. The way this works when LIOs click this button is that it will grab the most recent municipal boundaries that were submitted to LTSB and use those to cut the census blocks. It'll take a little while for it to cut, but once it does, you'll see a status here that it has completed, and you can go ahead and click Review and Confirm Split Blocks. None of these splits will be taken and actually processed until you have confirmed and verified each one of them. So when you click that verify button, it takes you to this little application here, And if you're an LIO and you're used to, or a land information person in a county, you're used to seeing a similar setup where you're pacing through a bunch of changes, like in the CBAS program. So right here, you can see there's a map showing us our blocks. We have some information from demographics down here, and then some descriptions of what we're actually seeing on the map here. So let me find a good example here. We have a lot of splits, and these are splitting 2010 census blocks with new municipal boundaries. So there's a lot of splits here, potential block splits, that in reality, hopefully we're not going to be seeing nearly this many splits when we're actually updating the data sets. So let's find a good example of what we're looking for. The most important part to remember about this process is it's meant to reallocate population for annexations that have occurred in the last year and a half or so. It's not really to correct conflation issues or geographic issues. Like these kind of splits right here, these little slivers you'll see in this red, are not what this process is meant to correct. This is meant to allocate for things that will actually affect real population. So as we're stepping through here, we'll find a real one. Here's a real one. Okay, so we can see right here we have a block. This block was formerly this yellow area and this red area. There are two blocks here being affected, so blocks affected by any of these splits are shown in purple. The area that is changing municipalities is this area in red, and then the original block, the remainder of the original block is this yellow. So the whole point of this process is to split these blocks and account for any annexations that have occurred, moving that population into the correct municipality. It is the LIO's responsibility to correctly allocate this population and split this block. The LIO is responsible for knowing the demographics and where those populations should go. Statutes do accommodate for the fact that there's not a really great way to know exactly who, specifically down to every race, lives in every house that could be affected by this. That's private information that you might not have. But we can use things like parcels. We can use other information we have about our area and our local knowledge. And the way the statutes are written is it's your best intent, your best guess as an LIO to split these blocks and allocate the population correctly between the two. So again, for our example here, we had this yellow and red area, and this was one block, and it had 20 people in them. It was formerly in the town, I apologize, Meadowmen, and it had a population of 20 people. All 20 of those were white. 12 of those 20 are over 18. And this little red area is actually going into the village of Brandon. So my job now as LIO is to say, yes, this is a valid split. I want this block split and this block to be reassigned to the correct municipality. I can see on my map here that there's a single structure here. Looks like this is a single parcel. I have an option right here to turn on parcels, so I can see specifically which parcels are we're discussing here. So the stress of which population should go where is actually relatively minimal when you're actually going through this process, and that's because most of the time when annexations occur, there's no one actually living in that area yet when the boundary is being adjusted. Usually it's empty property, so there's actually no population to worry about, and you're really more worried about the geography than anything else. So let's go ahead and start allocating this population based on our local knowledge. So if I go in here again, and if I turn on the parcels, I can see what parcels they are. Using my local knowledge and other information I've gleaned, I can say that there are 2 people living in this section of red here, and obviously they're both white because it's the only race available to me, and they both happen to be over 18. As you can see, there's 0 right here, but if I click over here on 18 and click up 2, the logic will say that, okay, there needs to be at least the number of people here to equal who are over 18, because you can't have more people over 18 than there are actual people. So logic will make sure that you're not ever going to lose any population and that all these numbers actually make sense together. So your kind of process here is to say, okay, this is correct. I'm going to verify. It's verified. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one. And I can go ahead and click through these as I see fit. I can click on the purple polygons if I would like to highlight a specific one. Let me turn the parcels up here. So if I click on this guy, I can see what his sliver was. So it's right here. If I click on this guy, I can see what his sliver was. So it can be geographically driven, or you can paste through the menu right here to make sure that you've got all of the pieces you want cut and all the population is properly allocated. Again, the default is that these blocks will not be split. So if you would like them split and the population actually reallocated, you will need to click verify. Once you have clicked verify on all the ones that need to be split and ignore the ones that are just conflation, geographic corrections, minor geographic corrections, you can go ahead and click finalize blocks. And that will start a post-processing process that will split the blocks and redeploy the tables for redistricting. Once you return to WYSLR admin and these have post-processed, the LIO should receive a email saying that the data has been finalized. You can go back in here in the census block viewer to confirm that it was split the way you like it. And then you can go ahead and click the confirmation code here. And once the LIO clicks that confirmation code and clicks confirm, that will officially launch the system in a way where people can start drawing supervisory districts and municipal wards. As I mentioned, you have 60 days to draw those supervisory districts. I'm just grouping those blocks together. On the right, you'll see the admin page as I mentioned, and this is where you'll create new plans or load existing plans. Creating a new plan is as simple as entering a plan name, a district count. You'll see in the bolded section here of stage 1, there's a total population. So that's the population of your county. And by state statute, there are block ranges of your populations that if you fall within a certain range, you can have X number of supervisors at most. Since you have been submitting your ward supervisory districts, aldermanic districts to us, we know how many supervisory districts you have right now. So it'll default to the current number of districts you have. You can always change the district count later on in the application itself. So if you start a plan of 20 supervisory districts and you want to increase it by 3 or something, you can do that in the application later on. Enter an email address. Make sure it's a valid email address because this will be how you recover your password for this plan, and this will be how you send yourself data, such as the plan itself. A plan password. This is just for this plan specifically and just for you. So just something you only know. There's no requirements for the password. And then it has a start with, and you'll see right there it says currently enacted. So there are a few options for how to start your plan. You can start your plan as a blank slate, just a blank set of blocks that are all assigned to 0 and it's a blank canvas. Or you can start it as what's currently enacted. So we'll translate what is currently enacted on the ground to the new US Census block geography, and you can start from basically how you are right now and adjust from there. How you want to start it as a blank or as what's currently enacted is totally up to your style. You may also start as another plan that has been shared. So if I draw a plan and I think it's the bee's knees, I think everyone should start their plan from based on what I throw. I can share that plan out and let my friends know that they can come in there and start their plan as my plan, and then they can adjust from there. Once you hit create, it'll launch up the WYSLR editor. So here is stage 1 in the WYSLR administrator page, and as you can see, I can click on each one of these pages, and it goes to which section I'm going to talk about. If I click on section 0 here, it says it's already complete. They already did their work. Good job, LIO. And then right here, you'll see there's a total population. So I'm in Kewaunee County right now, which the population of 20,000 people in 2010. And that means according to state statute, which is right here, they can have up to 21 supervisors. So Kewaunee County has been submitting data to us. So it defaults to 20 because that's how many supervisors they actually have. So we see here we have new plans remaining, 198, because I have 2 plans right here. If I select one of those plans to load it up, I made this plan earlier, these test 2. All I do is enter my password and click load to load it up. I can delete it if I have the password. I can change my password. If I forget my password, it'll send my email to let me know so I can reset it. In this case, we'll just go ahead and create a new one. All right, so we'll make a sample new plan. I'll leave it at 20. I'll enter my valid email address. Again, the plan password can be literally anything you want to. There's no character requirements. It just requires a password. And here's where my plans are. So you'll see I can start as a blank plan or currently enacted, but I didn't share this test or test 2. I can see them still, but there's a test password here. So what this means is that I can duplicate my plans if I want to. If I make a new plan called test, I think it's awesome. I want to start from there, but I don't want anyone else to see it yet. I don't want to share it with anybody else in my county. I want to just keep it to myself for now. So I make tests, and I come back out here and I make a new one, And I can start my plan then as test, what I already had before, and just enter my password in here. So the municipal ward section, the page is, again, this is Weislaw admin, looks just like stage 1, the exception of now you can select municipality you're using. So on my screenshot example here, the town of Albion is selected, and again, I just create a new plan by the plan name, plan district count, everything like that. You'll also notice there's a little thing in the right-hand corner that create new new plans remaining. Each county is allocated up to 200 plans to begin with. You can use them as aldermanic plans, ward plans, supervisory plans. But once you hit 200, it'll stop letting you create new ones. If you do hit 200, go ahead and contact LTSB. I'll be a little less forgiving about adding new plans if you've given your passwords away to the public. This system is intended for government use only. So if your plans have been all used up by giving it away, I'm going to be a little less inclined to give you more plans and ask you to delete other plans. This is just a space allocation precaution. Another thing different on stage 2 is a status section. So generally, municipalities under 1,000 people do not have to draw a ward plan. They can be a singular ward. So they'll see them here in gray as not required. Municipalities under 1,000 can still draw wards and are required to draw wards in certain situations, such as when they're divided by supervisory district, legislative district, etc. So you'll see right here, the town of Monopi is gray, so it's not required. And it looks like they haven't submitted a plan. But down here, you'll see the town of Casco is red. So there's no plan submitted to it right now. It means it's over 1,000 people. So it means it still requires a plan. But you'll see the city of Algoma is green. They have submitted a plan. They're complete. I can see what data was submitted on, who was approved by, their email, and the ordinance or legal ID that passed that plan. Once all the required municipalities have submitted, stage 2 will automatically end and notify everyone and move to stage 3. So once all the required municipalities have submitted and everything moves forward to stage 3, you'll see that everything's turned yellow, stage 3 reconciliation. And you'll see a status bar in the middle of, set of statuses in the middle of Weislaw admin. So each municipality will be shown as either invalid or valid. This is what's looking at the difference between what was passed in stage 1, supervisory districts, and the municipal wards that were passed in stage 2. So you can see here the town of Luxembourg passed a ward plan by Mrs. White, and it sits in each one of those wards, sits nicely within the supervisory district plan that was passed in stage 1. Again, each ward must be entirely within one supervisory district. So you can see there the town of Pierce is red. It looks like they hadn't submitted a plan, but it looks like the supervisory district plan must have divided that town in some way. So therefore, it needs a ward plan that will fit with the supervisory plan. You can go back in stage 3 by clicking on stage 2 or stage 1 on the left and either submit a new supervisory district plan or a new ward plan, either one, and it'll automatically update these statuses. Once all of them turn green, the final ward boundaries and supervisory districts can be approved at the confirmation code there at the bottom. Aldermanic districts can be drawn at any time past stage 2. I caution against drawing aldermanic plans until you're certain the wards are where they are, because if the ward plans change underneath them, the aldermanic plan will have to be thrown out. Aldermanic plans are made by grouping wards. So if the wards change, then the grouping of wards no longer makes sense. And again, it's the same process as with drawing wards. You can't start it as a currently enacted plan because the wards you're drawing on have never existed before, so there's nothing currently enacted because you're just creating them right now in stage 2. And there's this status here bar. As you can see, people, population less than 35,000, so everyone's not required in this specific county. So the Weislaw editor. So once you create one of those fun plans or load an existing one, this is what's going to pop up. The Weislaw editor is just a simple editing tool for assigning those blocks. You can see on the right here kind of a bunch of colored polygons. Each one of those little polygons is a block that has been assigned. It's given a color randomly, but you can change those colors in the attribute table, which is on the bottom section below. On the upper left of the editor, you'll see some tools like ID, pan, refresh. You can change the opacity of the blocks so you can see what's underneath them. You can change your aerial imagery, or if you want to, up there, kind of just like Google Maps. There's an assignment pane, a labels and layers pane, and a share pane on the left too. And then at the bottom, of course, is the attribute table, which will update automatically as you're drawing. The labels and layers pane has the options to turn off labels, turn on approved plans. So if I'm drawing a ward plan in stage 2 and I want to see what was passed in stage 1, I can turn that on and it'll overlay an outline on there so I can see what was passed, and I can try to use my best intention to follow what was happening in stage 1. I'm going to go ahead and start as currently enacted, just because I want something filled in already for demonstration purposes. But again, it's totally up to you how you want to start. If you want to start as a blank plan or an enacted plan or somebody else's plan, or however you want to do it. So all these little numbers on here, those little black numbers, that's the population of that block. The municipal boundaries are in the blue. You'll see that they don't quite align with the blocks because these are actually your new submitted municipal boundaries in reality, with overlaying on 2010 blocks. So excuse any little weirdness as we're zooming around here. It's just because we're anticipating still the new blocks. Okay, so here's the ID tool. If I click on a single block, it'll show me the demographic information for that block. It'll show me what's currently enacted on the ground right now. The last numbers here, that's the actual ward number that's actually on the ground. This is county ID is this first 5, and then the next 5 are the municipal ID. And this is a unique block identifier. Use your pan tool, move around the map like this, or you can use your middle of your mouse. Switch to your imagery if you'd like, just like Google Maps. If something doesn't draw in all the way, and you want to refresh the blocks, go ahead and click refresh right here, and it'll just refetch the block geography. Dane County drawing at a county-wide, that should be between 7 and 8 seconds of refresh time because there's so many polygons to draw. A county like Kewaunee county-wide, it shouldn't take more than a second or 2 to redraw per edit. Most mid-sized counties, let's say like Marathon County, shouldn't take more than 2 or 3 seconds between each refresh. If you find it taking, 7, 8, 10 seconds to refresh, let us know too. That means that resources are also being pegged out. So I can change the district, what district I'm drawing here by selecting this drop-down button, or I can just click on the district here below. It'll zoom to it, and it switches which one I'm drawing in. So when I draw District 4, it'll zoom to 4, switch this to 4. I can change the color right here in the attribute table, or up here next to the actual district number. This is the zoom to what's currently active, so District 4, or I can zoom to the full extent of my county. Here's my assignment tools, so I can go ahead and assign, see another block right here. To assign, you can click a single block, or I can click and drag to drag a bunch of them. So I can also unassign too. So I want to make sure I click unassign. I can go like this, and it unassigns it to 0, basically to nothing, or this to assign. Right here is the use currently enacted wards. So if you can see this little purple overlay to this, this is what's currently enacted for the wards. So if you wanted to play paint by numbers, let's say, and start with the blank plan, I want to just fill in the wards that exist right now. I don't want to draw completely from scratch. I'm drawing supervisory district plan. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to use these wards. So these pink lines in here, if you can see them on my screen, are the currently enacted wards. If I assign any block within that polygon, you can see them as refreshing there, it'll assign all the blocks in that polygon. So you can see right here, there's this little green guy who's got this block, this pink boundary on them. This is the ward that currently exists in the town of Red River. If I assign just this block right here, it'll assign all the blocks in that ward. When I turn this off, I can start reassigning by individual blocks again. Right here is the assign by region. So if you want to assign, let's say, let's switch districts here. So let's switch to District 1. If I want to assign the entire Red River Township, let's say, to District 1. There's Red River, assign that township. It'll assign the entire township at once. So now 1 is right here and right here. Undo last is disabled right now. We ran into a bug about it yesterday, so we decided to just disable it just to save any confusion. So we're aware of a bug in there we're fixing right now. jump to unassign, it'll zoom to an unassigned block. Shuffle colors is actually way handier than you think it would be. It reassigns all the colors for the entire, every district. So if you're drawing around and you see two districts that are similar color and you can't tell the difference in your eyes, just go ahead and shuffle colors and it all resets. And then it's just easier than having to worry about each color looking nice to each other. Merge and switch districts. So if I want to merge District 1 and District 2, I can click this button right here and it'll merge them. This one with the boundary around it, number 2, is what it's merging into. So 1 and 2 will become 2. If I wanted 1 and 2 to become 1, I'd have to switch this number. So this number was 2 and this number was 1. I can switch them, click switch. It'll switch from 1 and 2. So everything assigned to District 1 will become assigned to District 2 and vice versa. I want to clear the whole plan out, so the blank plan again, and click right here. Toggle locks. So you'll see over here, there's a lock column. So if I decide that District 1 is perfect, I do not want anything else to adjust it. I don't want to reassign it accidentally. I can set that. So if I can see, let me zoom in right here a little bit. So you can zoom, by the way, through either this plus minus button or on your the wheel of your mouse. So right here, I have District 1 locked, which is this brown area up here on the right. I'm going to assign to District 2. So I can see I'm grabbing some of District 1 here by accident. If I sign there, it only grabs and assigns the blocks that aren't locked. So this toggles all those locks on and off. Update district count numbers. So this is where you update the district counts. There's a caveat here, though. So if I have 20 districts and they're all assigned to something, and I change it to 18 districts, you'll still see that it's 20 districts. It's because you have 20 things assigned. So it says, okay, well, we can't drop it down because what do you want me to unassign? Drop it down to 18 districts, you'll need to unassign 19 and 20 or any other 2 in there to drop it down to the appropriate number. If you want to increase it, it'll just add it on there. So if I update this to 21, hit update, you'll see my deviations all change. But if I scroll down here to the bottom, you'll see I have a new district here to draw, a blank one. Labels and layers. So this is the population by blocks. Again, these little numbers right here, all the populations. District numbers. So these little guys are here. Municipalities, what's in blue. The approved plans, which are right here, turn on and off. So we're drawing a supervisory district plan right now. But hypothetically, let's say this is stage 3. We're in the middle of reconciliation. So that means that the wards have already been passed. And I want to come back in and I want to edit my supervisory district plan so I can see. But I want to see what they did at the ward level so I can kind of mash them up together and reconcile this thing. If I want to show approved plans, it'll show the ward boundaries that were passed. I think I have an example in here already. Right here, yes. So this green area, you can see these green guys. This was what was passed at the municipal level already. So I can see that my plan's aligning in certain ways. Again, these blue, green stuff don't look very nice with the boundaries because these are 2010 blocks with new boundaries on top of them. So currently enacted districts, so I can go ahead and I can turn on what's on the ground right now, overlay for wards, supervisory, legislative districts that are enacted right now, and the congressional districts that are enacted right now if I want to see what's currently on the ground. Here's a legend for that. I can also turn on demographics. So if I want to see a normalized by number of people, black demographics, I can go ahead and hit that button and it'll show over here. These are this one's coming through as wholes because there are zero population, but it should run on the fly of approximately what percentage of the population is whatever demographic you happen to have selected. And if you're having trouble seeing it, you can always turn this up to darken it up a little bit. So the attribute table at the bottom has some kind of fun bells and whistles here, specifically for Wisconsin state statutes. In the upper right, you'll see a little piece of table there that has population, valid range, and percent deviation. So as I mentioned, these update automatically as you're drawing, and it also knows the population of the city and therefore the range that a ward can be. The size of the ward by population is determined by the total population of the municipality by state statute. So the bigger the municipality, the larger the wards are allowed to be, and also the larger the range is that they're allowed to be. So for this particular municipality that I have as an example here on the right, it's only allowed to have wards that are between 300 and 1,000 people. If you exceed that, it'll turn red just to notify you. However, if you do have a plan that does exceed these bounds, there are legitimate reasons why that can happen, especially under the minimal range. and it won't stop you from submitting it and approving it. It'll just warn you here. So don't think the system is going to stop you from doing something, but be aware if you're exceeding those valid ranges, there has to be a valid reason for that to happen. The percent deviation is the total population of a municipality divided by the number of districts, and then what percent away from that ideal population the particular ward is. Wards can be within anywhere within that valid range, but if you're trying to balance your wards so they're at least a somewhat similar population level, you can use that field to help you determine how close you are within each ward. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see a deviation, percentage deviation, not a valid range. That's because supervisory districts are supposed to be as best your ability to the ideal population. Supervisory districts are supposed to be the total county population divided by the number of supervisory districts, and that's the population that is supposed to be what each supervisory district is. So you can see District 1 there. There are 940 people in it, which is 89 people short of the ideal, which would be exactly the population of the county divided by the number of districts. And again, percent deviation just being a percentage representation of that same idea. There's also some geometric attributes in there too for contiguity and compactness. So contiguity is the ability basically for each block to be touching each other. Can I walk anywhere within that district without having to exit that district? You'll see my example in the upper right. District 1 there is a contiguous district. All the blocks you can be touching each other in some way. District 2 is a good example of a non-contiguous district because corner-to-corner boundaries here, we see my block here with a label number 13 on there for the number of people. That is only touching by a corner. In Wisconsin, single-point connections do not count as a contiguous boundary. And then again, district number 3 here on the right is non-contiguous, obviously, because that block with total population in it is not touching it anywhere. And so it's just going to show a Boolean field as in true or false. If you click on the false, when you're actually editing, it'll zoom to the smaller section. So if I was on district 3 there and I clicked on false, it should zoom to that block with 12 population in it. This will be handy if, in case you've accidentally assigned a block somewhere else outside of your area and you can't figure out why it's not contiguous. It should be. There's another caveat here I want to make, and specific to Wisconsin, is that we have non-contiguous municipal boundaries in Wisconsin. So we have town islands. We'll do our best to adjust the underlying network that creates this ability to do contiguity, so it'll understand that you can connect to that leapfrog. Because in Wisconsin, you can have that town island as part of a ward, part of the main municipality, and it's still valid and legal, but they're not physically next to each other. So we'll try to make that work, but don't use this as the holy Bible of it is legally contiguous or not, just because of that reason. There's also situations where along coastlines, if there's just intricacies with the blocks, sometimes it'll show that it's not contiguous, but it actually is contiguous in reality. So use it as a guideline more than a definitive answer. If you do notice something that is showing as non-contiguous and it actually is contiguous, let us know, and we can try to adjust the underlying network so that way it understands those blocks are actually touching. So compactness measurements. Compactness measurements are used in redistricting to determine basically if the district is closest to a circle or closest to a convex polygon. So the first two algorithms there, and you have your choice of which three you want to use, measure how close the district is to a perfect compact polygon, which is a circle, the most compact polygon you can have. A area convex hull is a different school of thought where a district should just be a convex polygon, never a concave polygon. So it will measure how far away from a convex polygon this district is. All these scores are all between 0 and 1, with 1 being the most compact. So the first algorithm I mentioned is the Polsby-Popper algorithm. It's kind of the standard algorithm for redistricting. It measures the ratio of the area of the district to the area of a circle who has the same circumference equal to the perimeter of the district. So what it means on the right there, the circumference or the perimeter of that circle is equal to the district's perimeter. And then it measures the ratio between the area of that district and the area of the resulting circle. And then the next one here is Schwartzburg, which is just the opposite, where it is a ratio of the perimeter of the district to the circumference of a circle with the same area. So where this is measuring equal perimeters, therefore difference between areas, this is measuring equal areas with the difference between their perimeters. So the circle there has the same area as the district, and then it measures the difference between the circle's perimeter or its circumference with the district's perimeter. And again, these are all ratios, so it's all between 0 and 1. And the last algorithm I mentioned was the area convex hull. So that black polygon around there is a convex hull of that district, meaning that it is the most convex polygon that can be drawn around that district. Kind of think of it as a rubber band around something jagged. So it measures the difference between the ratio of the area of the district and the area of that convex hull. As a side note, interestingly, this district, as an example, is the original gerrymander district from which the name gerrymander comes from. And here are those contiguity and compactness things. Larger counties might see a 1 or 2, 3 second delay per edit as it's calculating all geometry. What it has to do is dissolve all this geometry together to create these district polygons, then measure them. So, and also traverse the network of these blocks to see if they're contiguous or not. So it takes a little bit of computing power, but it's pretty efficient. So if you want to save a little bit of processing time, you can turn that off if it's going slow and see if that helps. Otherwise, you can select algorithms if you want to, which one you would like. So right now I can see the compactness of District 1, according to Polsu Popper, is 0.34, which kind of makes sense because it's 2 giant squares here. But if I switch over to Schwartzburg, I can see it updates automatically. Schwartzburg says it's a 0.59. If I switch to a area convex hull, it says it's a 0.63. Here's a good example of how coastal geography can affect contiguity. So District 1 shows as non-contiguous because there is no block right here, because in reality it's a harbor, a river. But this would be considered contiguous because there actually, technically it's a block right here that exists as part of the sea that they can connect it to. I believe, and it doesn't have to be something expert of LRB, but this is an existing border now, so it must have been legal, that this is okay. Because right here you can see there's a block that connects this and right here and here that were just an empty river block. So sharing plans. So when you make all these great plans, you need to show people them. So we have a few options here. The first option is you can export and import. So you can export these out to a block list, which is just, it says a block ID number, comma, the district number. So it can be used in tables or used in GIS forms and stuff. We have another option, which is the exporting by the block geometry, so a shapefile that GIS people can use, or we can export just the plan boundaries in GIS form for GIS people to use as well. The other option is you can import a shared plan. So if I'm in a plan right now and it's blank and I want to import someone else's plan, I can do that as well and overwrite what I currently have. You'll see that underneath that as a share plan check button. This is how you can share a plan with the public or not. You'll see then when you share a plan, that means other people can start a plan, as I mentioned before, as your plan, or you can also send out this link here. So you'll see these 2 viewer URLs, a public share and a private share. So once that is shared, that public share URL can be sent around to people and they can view your district in an interactive way, exactly the same as the editor minus any editing tools. They can see the attribute table, they can see some little bit of demographics overlays, they can put other things on top of it. It's the same kind of tools you have as the editor, just not being able to change your plan. The private share works the same way, where it sends a viewer to somebody. However, it works for unshared plans. So if I am drawing a district and I want my friends to see it, but I don't want anyone else to see it quite yet, I can send them that URL. The caveat there is that URL is always going to be the same. So once you give somebody that private share plan URL, they can always view that plan. The public share URL, if you unshare that plan, that public share URL will be dead. So if I share it out, then I said, ooh, I don't like that one, I can unshare it quick, and that URL will no longer work for anybody anymore. So here's the share tab. So the share button's right here. So if I hit share right now, plan is now shared to others. That means that if somebody else started a plan in Kiwani right now, they can start a plan as my plan. They can't edit my plan, but they can start a new plan as my plan. Also, this URL will then work. So I can copy this with a little guy right there. I can go to this viewer. So there's that beautiful plan of mine. And this is the WiseLR viewer. So this is my public share URL. You can tell the difference between the two because it has a share ID. Other one will say private ID. And the share ID right here only lasts as long as you have it shared. So that'll expire as soon as and go away forever as soon as you click on share. But the people that are viewing this can do the same thing now. They can see their demographics. They can sort just the same way you can sort in the other table. Sort population. They can do what they need to do. They can overlay things. It's basically the same thing as editor, except for you can't assign. So going back into the editor, where we can assign things, you'll see we have an export-import button, whereas this only has an export button. Here's your options again for exporting. Export as a CSV file, it's a common delimited file of your blocks and the assignment number, and then a block boundary shape file and a boundary shape file. So what those blocks dissolve to the district level. And then you can import those again too. So if you have GIS people that want to take your plan and analyze it in some way in their own systems, they can pull it out of here. They can look at it. They can analyze it, tweak it, and then re-import it back here if they want to. And import shared plans is again, if something's shared, I can click. So my plan's still shared, so I can import myself. But they can import my plan because it's shared. I'll unshare it. Plan is no longer shared. So now my plan is perfect. It's wonderful. It's a bee's knees, and I can go back now and confirm it. So the way you get back is clicking WiseLR admin. Again, by the way, the help PDF is right here. The name of my plan is right here. This is the county I'm working in right now. So right here is WiseLR admin. To go back to the administrator page. Every edit, by the way, is auto-saving. So you don't have to worry about hitting save or anything like that. As you're going, if you want to exit, even if you exit your plan, don't do anything, it'll still save everything. So it's confirmation codes. So we'll be sending each LIO, each county clerk, each municipal clerk with a single 6-character alphanumeric code that identifies you. Because your entire county is sharing the same login information, we needed a way to identify a specific individual who has a specific role. On record, we'll have a system set up to retrieve the code if you lose it. You can always call us for it. County clerk codes work for all the municipal clerks' codes as well. We're hoping it's a good system where it's not going to be a huge headache to make sure everybody gets their codes straightened out. But it's a good way for us to identify that you are the right person to be submitting this to us, saying this is the final version for my county. So here's that sample new. Here's my plan. If I want to load it back up again, I can enter my plan password and click load to load it back up. Or I can just click right here at the bottom. So here at the bottom of stage 1, as you can see, it says select final plan, enter ordinance ID, and my county clerk confirmation code. So I think that this is incomplete parts in sample new, so I won't use that one. But it will stop you from confirming anything if you have blocks that are not assigned to a district. But it won't stop you if you have discontiguous districts because of the caveats that I mentioned earlier, or if there's any other balancing issues. It doesn't police you in that way. It'll only police you and every block needs to be assigned. So at the county board meeting last night, we passed it as ordinance 1234. And here's my county clerk confirmation code. Click confirm, and I can see my clock stopped here. I finished it in a day. And you'll see right here on the left, my clocks for municipal boundaries switch forward. So stage 2 began today, 5/7, and now 60 days from 5/7 is when they are due on 7/6. By submitting this right here and can confirm, the system will send all municipal clerks we have record of in that county an email letting them know that stage 1 has been approved and stage 2 is now open. Okay, so if I click my plan here, I can approve it if I want to, just the same way I would with any other supervisory plan. I give it my name. We don't ask for your name for the supervisory level because we know who you are. You're the county clerk. But we wanted to make sure that we have the most accurate record of who is doing the municipal clerks. There's so many of them. We'll just do confirm again. Confirm. Plan confirmed. And I'll see now down below here that I have the status section. So 6 of 14 municipalities have an approved plan or a population less than 1,000. So I can see right here this gray, an OPI, less than 1,000 people, doesn't require something. Again, they can pass a plan, a ward plan if they would like to. a single ward has to be within a single supervisory district. So later on, they might have to pass a ward plan if the town was divided. Right here's my approval. Here's my name, my email address, the ordinance that approved it. And if I want to view it, I can click right here, open up the viewer. There's that plan. So once all these red guys here, the incomplete ones, are filled in and approved, stage 2 will automatically end and everyone will be notified. So the county clerk and municipal clerk will both be notified that all stage 2 is done. So we can go and click stage 3 down here. So I can see right now that whatever was passed in stage 1 clashes or jives with whatever was done here in stage 2. So some of these will turn red because they require a plan. Some of them will turn red because the supervisory district plan is cutting through a ward in some way. So again, you can go back, click on stage 2, or click on stage 1, and reapprove a plan, and it'll update automatically right here if all municipalities are valid. Once they're all green, meaning that the municipal plan passed for the city of Algoma, all the wards nest perfectly within what was passed in stage 1, and all these are green, you can go ahead and enter your county clerk confirmation code to submit the final wards and supervisory districts to us. Again, aldermanic districts can be done at any time. So once your city of Algoma could potentially come in here right now and create a new aldermanic plan if they would like to. The caveat again there is that let's say that city of Algoma is conflicting right here, or a conflict in here is causing a change that will cause a conflict in here. Anything I drew here for the city of Algoma will be invalid because, like supervisory districts are grouping blocks, wards are grouping blocks, aldermanic districts are grouping wards. So I know most municipalities don't require aldermanic districts, but the ones that do, I caution to wait until you know that your municipal wards are the final version of them. That is generally the demo here for the software and of WiseLR. If you have any questions in the future, I recommend you go to legis.wisconsin.gov. So on this website, legis.wisconsin.gov/LTSB/webinars, you'll find this webinar reposted eventually right here. You'll see our PowerPoints from the Legislative Reference Bureau and the Applied Population Lab, as well as pre-recorded presentations from all 3 of our groups. We're the local redistricting groups trying to get information and training out there for it. This software was written by me and the UI was designed by Grace, so we are actively enhancing it and changing it as we hear back from clerks and LIOs and other participants in the state. So if you have a good idea for how you would like to see things, we're going to be adding school districts as a good idea from an audience member. Send an email us off and we can try to add it in the system.